The condom was navy blue. Claire stared at it in the trash basket beneath the bathroom sink, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. 10 years. 10 years of Charles coming home late, his cologne mixing with the scent of someone else's perfume. 10 years of him picking apart her body like she was a science experiment gone wrong. "Your hips are wider," he'd say while scrolling through his phone. "Are you going to eat all that?" he'd ask, watching her plate during dinner. She'd endured it all. The verbal jabs that accumulated like interest on a debt she didn't owe. The way he'd walk past her in the hallway, carefully to avoid touching her as if she was contagious. The way he looked at her with something between disappointment and disgust. But this was different. This was him not even bothering to hide it anymore. This was him bringing his affair into their home, into her bathroom, and leaving evidence in the trash like he wanted her to find it, like he didn't care if she knew. Claire's hands were shaking when she confronted him that evening. Laura was upstairs doing homework, thankfully out of earshot. Charles was on the couch, tie loosened, drink in hand, utterly unbothered when she stood in front of him with her voice steady despite the chaos inside her chest. "How dare you?" she yelled. He didn't even look up from his phone. "It is one thing to sleep around. It's a whole other thing to bring your tramps into my home." "Your home," he said, finally meeting her eyes with something that looked like amusement. "Claire, did you contribute a penny to buying this house? So how is it your home?" Claire opened her mouth to speak, but the rage choked her. What if Laura had been the one to find it? Do you really not care what she would think? Whose fault is that? Just look at yourself. Mommy, I can't find my jacket, Laura's voice interrupted them. Claire watched Charles walk away without sparing her another glance. She took a steadying breath and turned to Laura, smile ready as usual. "Why do you let him treat you like that?" Laura's question caught her off guard. "Sweetie, Daddy and I were just having a little argument," she lied. The lies were easier now. "I'm not stupid, Mom. Why would you stay with him despite how—" "I will never do that to you. I will always be here for you," she said, reaching for Laura, but she stepped back. "I'm 11, Mom. I'm not a baby anymore." Claire chuckled. "You're not a baby, but you can't find your jacket yourself," she said with a smile. But Laura didn't smile when she replied. "I didn't need my jacket. I was just tired of hearing Dad treat you like trash." With that, Laura walked off, stomping up the stairs to her room. Her last words echoed in Claire's mind. She had been trying to protect her little girl from the nightmare that was her marriage. She knew that Laura wouldn't live in the bubble she created forever, but she didn't think it would end so soon. "You want a divorce?" Charles said slowly, his voice a mixture of surprise and amusement. He read through the divorce papers she set before him again, running his fingers over her signature, which she had quickly scribbled at the lawyer's office. More for herself than him. If she didn't sign it then, she might change her mind. He might not think she was serious. This way, she at least could leave with her head held high. "Fine," he said after a beat. "But we must keep it quiet. I'm up for partner next month. I can't have this kind of scandal mess up all my hard work." Claire couldn't say she was surprised that his concern about the divorce was his reputation amongst his colleagues rather than his daughter's feelings. If he was going to be selfish, so could she. "What's in it for me?" she asked. Much to his surprise, in their 12 years together, she had never asked anything from him. "If I am to keep your big secret, what do I get out of it?" Charles was clearly stunned. "What do you want?" She hadn't thought that far. What did she want? "The school I've been begging you to enroll Laura in. I want you to do that." He nodded and was about to sign the document when she blurted out, "And I want the house." His head snapped up. "Have you lost your mind?" he roared. Maybe she had, but the words were already out and she would be damned if she cowered. I chose this house. Remember all those years ago when you promised me my dream home? For 10 years, I have loved and cared for this house. Charles shook his head. I am not giving you the house, woman, he said, signing the divorce papers. Fine. Since you've signed the papers, we're now strangers. I will go in, pack my bags and my daughter's, and move to the hotel near your office building. Let's see how you will explain our change of residence to your beloved colleagues. Claire was bluffing. She didn't have enough money in her savings to get a room at such a luxurious hotel. She crossed her fingers, hoping he wouldn't see through her bluff. Charles had enough money to buy a house bigger than theirs. Giving up the house shouldn't be an issue. Fine, but you must not say a word to anyone. You and Laura will continue to live here. After my promotion, we make an announcement about a mutual decision in 6 months. Deal? Claire felt like pumping her fist in the air at her victory, but instead she nodded, keeping her facial expression neutral. Laura hugged her mother when she told her the news. Only then did Claire feel the full weight of her decision. What was she supposed to do with herself now? The day after the papers were signed, Claire sat in her new office at Thornton and Associates, the company where she'd worked as an executive assistant for 5 years. She stared at her computer screen without seeing it. The separation wouldn't be public for months. She was still technically married. She had the house, she had Laura's tuition covered, but she also had something else, a hollow feeling in her chest that had nothing to do with Charles. It had to do with her. She didn't recognize herself anymore. Not in the mirror, not in her own life. The girl who'd fallen in love with Charles at 16 had dreamed of things. Travel, learning languages. That girl had wanted to be a journalist. That girl had laughed easily and danced badly and believed in possibility. That girl was gone. Jaden Green found her staring out her office window that afternoon. He was her boss, but more than that, he was the only person in her life who'd known her before Charles. They'd grown up together, the children of colleagues, spending holidays at each other's houses. Jaden had always been the smart one, the ambitious one, the one who'd ended up running a successful firm by 35. Coffee? He asked, appearing in her doorway with 2 cups. Just water for me, she said, automatically. The old habits died hard. Charles had comments on her caffeine consumption. Jaden set both cups on her desk and sat down without asking. How are you holding up? Fine, she said, because that's what women said when they were breaking apart at the seams. He studied her in a way that made her uncomfortable, like he was looking for something. Claire, you know me, and I know you. I've known you long before. He trailed off, but they both understood. Before Charles. Before a decade of small cruelties. I'm fine, she repeated. You're not fine. You look like you've forgotten how to be alive. He leaned back in his chair. What if we change that? She laughed, but it came out hollow. How? Come with me tomorrow, Saturday morning. No arguments. She should have said no, but something in his voice, something that reminded her of kindness, made her agree. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It happened in small moments that accumulated, like the opposite of Charles's criticisms. Instead of tearing down, Jaden built up. The first Saturday, he took her to a salon she'd never been to, one where the stylist, a man named Marcus with kind eyes and incredible energy, cut her hair. Not just a trim, a real cut that made her face look different, sharper, alive. You've been hiding under all of this, Marcus said, running fingers through her newly layered hair,
Let's not do that anymore.
The next week, Jaden took her and Laura shopping, not to the discount stores where she usually bought clothes designed to minimize and hide, to places where fabric was luxurious and colors were bold. A saleswoman helped her try things on, and with each piece, Claire saw something shift. The navy dress that made her shoulders look strong, the red blazer that made her feel like she was allowed to take up space. Laura applauded each look, having as much fun as she was playing dress up. "You look like you," Jaden said when she emerged from the dressing room in the blazer. "I look like a stranger," she whispered. "No, you look like a woman who isn't afraid to face the world," he assured her. And truthfully, she felt that way. The weeks turned into months. Laura helped her navigate a skincare routine that made her skin glow instead of feeling neglected. She began going to the gym again, and she realized that moving her body could feel good instead of punitive. Charles had kept his end of the deal. The ownership of the house was transferred to her name. Laura was enrolled into Westfield Academy, tuition paid in full. Seeing Laura off was one of the hardest things Claire had ever done. The boarding school had a good reputation, so she knew her girl would be fine. Still, her maternal heart was worried. With Laura out of the house, Claire had more time to herself. After work, she made dinner for one, sat on the porch, and sipped wine while reading a mystery novel. Charles would come home with different women each night. Today a brunette, the next a blonde, and one day a girl Claire could have sworn was a teenager. At first it stung, more than she cared to admit. But now the screaming during their bedroom fiasco amused her more than it annoyed her. It seemed to her that he was picking out his women by their lung strength, because why else would all their screams reach her all the way upstairs from the guest room? Slowly, Claire started to recognize the woman in the mirror again. It wasn't just about appearance, though that was part of it. It was about reclaiming space, about laughing without waiting for permission, about ordering dessert without apologizing, about walking into a room and not shrinking. Everyone around her noticed her change. She gladly soaked up the compliments. When she walked into a room, heads turned. She noticed it, and she loved it. She also noticed when Jaden's eyes lingered on her a little longer. She noticed how he'd find excuses to be near her. She noticed that sometimes when they were working late and the office was empty, the air between them felt charged with something neither of them was quite ready to name. One evening, they were alone in the office, collaborating on a project that could have been finished hours earlier, but somehow kept needing revision. Claire was curled up on the couch in Jaden's office, her legs tucked beneath her, laughing at something ridiculous he'd said. "What?" he asked, his own smile fading slightly as he looked at her. "Nothing. I forgot what this felt like. Just being happy, not worried about saying the wrong thing or being the wrong way." Jaden was quiet for a moment. "You know, I've always," he started, then stopped himself. "Never mind." But something in his expression told her he was holding something back, something that had been waiting a long time to be said. The public announcement of the separation came 6 months after the divorce was finalized. Charles released a carefully worded statement about mutual respect and different life paths on his social media. Claire said nothing. She didn't need to. She was too busy living. Even when mutual friends reached out to ask why the solid couple broke up, she repeated his words to them. Laura came home from boarding school for Christmas break and walked into the house almost stunned. "Mom, is that you?" I laughed. "It's still me, just more me." Her daughter hugged her fiercely. "You look fabulous." "I do," Claire said, spinning around. Claire was surprised to see Charles at their door on Christmas morning, gift in hand. They had agreed that it was a good idea for Laura to have both her parents during the holidays, but she still hadn't expected to see him. He looked different standing there, softer, almost sympathetic. His eyes lingered on her curves, the same curves he had constantly mocked her about. "I made a mistake," he said after lunch, watching her in her new dress, her confident posture, her unveiled face. "We can fix this. We can work it out. I want to come home." Claire looked at this man she'd spent a decade trying to please, and she felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just a vast, empty nothing where love used to live. "Home? Which home?" she asked simply. "Did you ever contribute to the upkeep of this home? There's nothing to fix because you never broke me. I broke myself trying to be what you wanted. I'm just finally putting myself back together." "It's because of Jaden, isn't it?" Charles's voice turned bitter. "That's what this is about." Claire couldn't believe her ears. "No," Claire said. "Not that it's your business anymore. All Jaden did was help me remember that I was worth something." She walked away before he could say anything else. They may be divorced, but they still needed to be civil for Laura. Back at the office the following Monday, Jaden seemed nervous in a way she'd never seen before. They'd settled into an easy rhythm over the months, but something felt different. There was anticipation in the air, like a held breath. "I need to tell you something," he said when they were alone in his office. "And I've been trying to figure out how to say it without ruining everything, so I'm just going to say it badly." Claire's heart rate picked up. "I've had feelings for you since we were teenagers. I tried to tell you, but you got involved with Charles, so I moved on. I watched you spend a decade with someone who didn't deserve you, and it hurt like crazy. I thought I had completely gotten over my feelings for you, but these past few months, it's like I'm 15 again. I want to be part of your life. Not as your boss, not as your friend, though I hope I'm still that, as someone who sees you and chooses you every single day." He stopped, breathing hard like he'd run a marathon just getting the words out. Claire stood there, suspended between possibilities. She could say yes and fall into the easy comfort of something she almost had years ago. She had had a biggest crush on Jaden too. When they were kids, he had always been there for her. But she wasn't a child anymore. "I am sorry, I can't," she said finally. "Not because I don't feel something, but because I've spent a decade being what someone else wanted me to be. I need to know who I am when I'm just being me, for myself." Does that make sense? She watched his face carefully, waiting to see if he'd push, if he'd make it about him. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Yeah, it makes sense. But I also need you to know that I've always been grateful for your help. When we were younger, I was too scared to admit I had feelings for you. And now I'm not scared of much anymore. So maybe we figure it out together. Without a timeline. Without pressure. Just see what happens." Jaden smiled. It was tender, hopeful, patient in a way that suggested he could wait as long as she needed. "I can work with that." The weeks that followed were strange and beautiful. Claire took more time for herself. She and Laura took a trip to Europe that they talked about for years. She had coffee with old friends she'd lost touch with during her marriage. She learned to be alone without being lonely. And she spent time with Jaden. Not as a couple, not officially, but as two people who were figuring out if they wanted to be. They had dinners that turned into conversations that lasted until the restaurant closed. They had moments where they'd almost kiss and then pull back, both of them honoring her need for time. They had the luxury of not rushing. One evening, months later, they were on the rooftop of Jaden's apartment building at sunset. The city sprawled out before them in gold and purple light. Claire leaned against the railing, and Jaden stood beside her, not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "Are you happy?" he asked. She considered the question seriously. "Yeah, I am. Not because everything's perfect or because my life is some movie montage. I'm happy because I'm choosing my own story now. And the best part is, I don't know how it ends yet." He turned to look at her. "Does that scare you?" "A little, but not like before. This is a good kind of scary, the kind where the outcome is actually possible." Jaden reached for her hand and she let him take it. They stood there as the sun disappeared and the city lights came on. Two people who'd almost had their chance years ago, now standing on the edge of something new. Neither of them knew for certain what would happen next. Maybe they'd fall in love. Maybe they'd realize they were better as friends. Maybe something else entirely would unfold that they couldn't predict. But for the first time in a long time, Claire was okay with not knowing, because whatever came next, she'd be choosing it, and that was everything. She was alive again, finally, fully, completely alive, and no one could take that from her.